Ned Pettis Jr., the Director of Public Safety, and I just have a few comments that I'd like to make before I turn things over to our mayor. We have lost too many souls. There have been too many hearts broken, too many families shattered, and too many lives changed forever by reckless, thoughtless actions of criminals with guns. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, children, futures eliminated, dreams destroyed. These bullets have no names and these shooters have no conscience. This has to stop, and we must do everything in our power, utilize every resource within our reach to end it. We've said many times, this is not a fight that we can win alone. We need the community to join us, and we need partnerships like the one we are announcing today. I'm proud to partner with the peerless professionals of the ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I'm grateful to everyone here today for stepping up as we expand our collaboration in the fight against gun violence in our city. And for more on that, please welcome our Mayor, Andrew J. Ginther. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Director Pettis, and all of our great partners that have joined us here today for this announcement. To echo the Director, gun violence is neither abstract nor impersonal. Every incident is a tragedy. Every loss is deeply felt. This year alone, we have already seen 98 gun deaths in Columbus and 648 gun-related injuries as well. Our city's ShotSpotter detection system is measuring this increase in activity as well, with alerts up 27% in the Hilltop, 44% in Linden, and 65% on the South Side year to date. The effects of this violence are devastating. They're widespread, and they span generations. Just as the challenges before us are complex and multifaceted, so are the solutions. We must continue to deploy the resources and expertise needed to reverse these unacceptable trends. From the very beginning, we've engaged with members of the community, faith leaders, youth, law enforcement, to listen, to reassure, and to explore options for reducing violence in our streets. We launched new initiatives like Growing Up for young men in Linden and End the Violence, and partnering with mayors and city managers to identify youth diversion programs to serve the entire region. We expanded existing programs like Reroute, Safe Streets, and Safe Neighborhoods, all with proven track records of success. We've embedded social workers and mental health professionals in our 911 dispatch center so we can provide the right response at the right time, and so officers can spend more time with what they're trained to do: fight and reduce violent crime. We continue to make unprecedented investments in summer and anti-violence programming to keep our youth safe, healthy, and active as we confront the pandemic's disparate but lingering effects. But we need to do more. Today, we're announcing a new partnership with CPD, ATF, and the U.S. Attorney's Office to allow us to tackle this issue from every angle. We're determined to prevent these crimes from occurring in the first place and to hold those commit them accountable in our community. Chief Bryant will now share additional details about this new partnership. Chief Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. As the mayor indicated, this gun violence, it has to stop. And we're doing everything that we possibly can to ensure that that happens. We know that we can't arrest our way out of every crime, so we know that there has to be other initiatives, the youth programs, social workers. We also know that it's important to have enforcement. This week I announced the formation of a parks detail, dozens of officers on foot and bike patrols who will provide high visibility protection in the parks and the surrounding areas. We want the youth and the citizens to be able to enjoy these parks without worrying about violence. We know that coming out of this pandemic, a lot of people are coming outside and they want to enjoy those areas. So we want to be able to provide an environment where they feel safe. We're also working on solving violent crimes. We know in Columbus, there's a small group of people driving our violent crimes. So we want to focus on ensuring that we target those specific individuals and be able to get them in custody and be able to solve some of these issues so we could see a decrease in our crime. Last week, our ShotSpotter program went live in the Near East Side with the expectations of improving the department's ability to respond to these incidents in real time. This resource will be tremendous in aiding officers in getting these weapons off the streets and identifying shooters, which in turn will save lives. These are just a few initiatives we are using in the fight against gun violence. The way we win this fight is by enlisting every partner we can, from the community block watch clubs to everyone you see here today. This is why I'm happy and I'm excited to be a part of this announcement today, enhancing our partnership with ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office with the addition of the Crime Gun Intelligence Center. This will strengthen and enhance our ability to go after the worst gun violence offenders in our city. To those of you that are driving this crime with no regard for human life, I want to make myself very clear. We do not accept and we will not tolerate this senseless violence. This is a crisis in our community that cannot and will not stand. To share more on this partnership, I want to welcome ATF Special Agent Roland Herndon.
Good afternoon. My name is Roland Herndon, and I am the Special Agent in charge of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF. I am pleased to stand here today with our partners representing the City of Columbus and the United States Department of Justice to announce the creation of the Crime Gun Intelligence Center, or CGIC, in the City of Columbus. ATF utilizes intelligence-based enforcement strategies to restrict the flow of firearms to criminals and deter the illegal use and possession of firearms, all with the mission to reduce violent crime. Creating this CGIC in cooperation with our partners will help law enforcement share information and work together in identifying and use the source of crime guns, reducing violent crime, and hold those accountable. Our mission is to reduce firearms violence through aggressive, evidence-based investigation, identification, and prosecution of shooters and those who supply crime guns. In the City of Columbus, this strategy includes deputizing additional Columbus police officers as ATF task force officers who will work together with our Columbus field office on a daily basis. This is in addition of officers who are already deputized as task force officers with ATF. The group will use a variety of data to identify individuals responsible for identifying the violence and supplying the crime guns to our communities. One of the tools that will be used is called NIBIN, and that is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. This tool allows us to link shootings through ballistic evidence. This information enables the partners to see the patterns in shootings previously unknown. Firearms trace information will also identify the use of National Trace Center, may also help us identify illegal firearms trafficking indicators. But those are just investigative leads. The real heart of the CGIC is the men and women who work day and night, the ATF personnel, the police officers, the intelligence research specialists who take the leads and follow these leads to investigation and prosecution, allowing family members to have at least a small piece of closure. One thing that we still need is the human side of this. We need the community to help us. If you know something about violent crime and you want to contact ATF and the CJIC, please call 888-ATF-TIPS. That is 888-283-8477. Or you can email us at atftips@atf.gov or through the Report It app, which you can download on your smartphone. At the end of the day, these efforts are to make our communities safe. And as the pledge says, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have U.S. Attorney Martinez.
Good afternoon. I am Brian Martinez, the Deputy Criminal Chief at the United States Attorney's Office here in Columbus. And I want to thank Mayor Ginther for having us all here today. Fighting violent crime is one of the most important priorities at the Department of Justice. And for prosecutors like myself, it is one of our most critical obligations. That's why I'm delighted to be here today, standing shoulder to shoulder with terrific partners who share this commitment to combating violent crime. This is a difficult problem, and difficult problems call for creative solutions and innovative strategies. And speaking for the U.S. Attorney's Office, I can say that we are excited and we are optimistic about the creation of the Crime Gun Intelligence Center here in Columbus. We see this as an opportunity to continue and really to expand upon our existing partnerships with ATF and the City of Columbus to disrupt violent crime and to identify and hold accountable the worst offenders in our community. My colleagues and I at the U.S. Attorney's Office stand ready to assist in any way we can using the federal tools that are available to us. And for us, that means prosecuting dangerous offenders. People like convicted felons or other prohibited persons who illegally possess firearms. People like individuals who unlawfully traffic firearms, and those who would violate federal robbery and murder laws. And when appropriate, we will prosecute such individuals in federal court where the penalties are often stiffer than in state court. We will also continue to work closely with our partners at the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, and we thank them for their tireless efforts to combat violent crime. The work we do with them each day is very important. We do understand that aggressive enforcement alone is not the answer, but it is a critical piece to any meaningful strategy to reduce violent crime. And we also understand that at the end of the day, our success will be measured not just by the number of arrests and prosecutions, but by whether there's a decrease in violent crime in our community. Today's launch of CJIC is an important step in that ongoing effort. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Deputy Chief Martinez, and special thanks to Special Agent Herndon, Chief Bryant, and Director Pettis. The spike in violent crime in our neighborhoods is disturbing, and it's a daunting challenge, not just for our city, but cities across America. But we will not be deterred. We will continue to address violent crime in our neighborhoods from every angle and bring every resource we have to bear on the problem. All of us need to do more to report what we know when we know it to the proper authorities, to strengthen the bonds of trust and communication within our community. This partnership is not a first step, and it will not be our last, but it's an important step toward restoring safety, ensuring justice, and laying the foundation for a better tomorrow. We'll be happy to answer a few questions from the press if you have any.
The testing, the NIVAN testing, my understanding is CPD is currently 6 to 8 months behind on their gun testing.
Turn to Chief Bryant. Is that? Yep.
Thank you very much for the question. The question was who's going to handle the testing. The Columbus Police Department will still handle the testing, but ATF is also working on bringing in additional resources, additional individuals that can do the testing, and we're hopefully bringing in additional equipment into the area so we can spread out the shell cases and other things that we're collecting to get increased information. But we're also looking at increasing the analysts that will be looking at the information that will be coming out so we can properly identify those individuals that are doing the shootings.
Are you hoping that will also expedite the backlog?
Yes, the backlog we're going to take care of very fast, but we also work from the front. So the shell casings that are dropped today, we're going to be working on those immediately, but also comparing those from the past together.
On the testing?
As soon as possible is always best. We always try to make sure that the investigators that are at the police department, if a person is arrested while they're still in custody, we try to get that information to them at that time. So that way we're not releasing that individual and having to go back after that individual at a later time. But the biggest thing that we would like to do is to make sure we're getting the right individuals and off the street as fast as possible.
Thank you, Special Agent.
Thank you, sir.
Of the, you said nearly 650 gun violent crimes. Out of those so far, how many have you found that were illegal firearms?
We know those stats at this point that are illegal crime guns? Yeah. Obviously, illegal crime guns are a serious issue in this city and cities across America, but we'll have to track down the specifics if we've been able to tie those shootings, how many of those shootings with illegal crime guns, but we'll have to get back to you on that. It's a major issue here and in cities around the country. Yes, Dan.
When do you expect to start seeing the benefits of this partnership? Today, tomorrow, when?
I think we're going to see them pretty quickly. I think the Special Agent Herndon spoke to that getting rid of the backlog and getting the testing done as quickly as possible. Chief Bryant, Special Agent, U.S. Attorney's Office, I think we're going to see an impact very quickly, immediately. Mm-hmm. Yes?
About bringing in more people, and whatnot. What does funding look like for the whole this?
Fortunately, the funding will be paid for by the United States government. The overtime will be paid for by the Department of Justice, and the equipment that will be used by the task force will also be supplied by the Department of Justice.
How much will be spent with this agency, this partnership?
We always find ways to make things happen, and at this time, we're just going to make it happen.
Just a follow-up, Dan's question of talking about benefits and when we're going to see that. What specifically are you hoping is the result, is the benefit for the residents? What do you want to tell them?
Well, I'll let the experts speak to it, but I think, in layman's terms, this is going to help connect our most violent criminals with guns that have been used in violent crimes here in the city of Columbus and get them off the street and held accountable faster. We know it's a very small number of folks in this community that are committing overwhelming disproportionate amount of violent crimes. We need those folks off the street. We need information from the public, but we also need this incredible partnership, the technology and the human resources and expertise that the federal government can bring to bear to help us identify, charge, and then convict these violent criminals. Chief?
Mayor, you said it perfectly. We want to see a decrease in our gun violence. We want to see these guns taken off the street. And we want to not only see people that need to be convicted, but also being able to help people in certain situations, do wraparound, provide social services. We're looking at it from a holistic approach as well, but specifically decreasing gun violence and taking these guns off the streets.
Do you have any idea how many illegal guns there are in the city of Columbus right now?
We would probably have a pretty good sense of that, but we'll have to get you a specific number. I don't want to give you inaccurate or misinformation, but we know it's a major issue in this city and in cities around the country, this proliferation of guns, particularly illegal crime guns.
Other mayors across the state, do you think it's a worse problem in Columbus, about the same as compared to like a Cleveland or a Cincinnati, Dayton?
Our friends from the federal government might be able to speak to this. I think this is an issue, the proliferation of guns and particularly illegal crime guns, gun trafficking is a major issue in cities across the country. I don't think it's uniquely worse here in the city, but I think our experts from the federal level might be able to speak to that.
As a representative of the United States government on the federal side, we have to look at it in a holistic effect. I look at it as a parent who, it's not the amount of guns that are being used, but how do you explain that to a mother who just lost their child or a parent who just lost their child? I don't think that person really is looking at it as all the crime guns. They're just worried about that gun that just killed their kid. And that's what we're going after right now. We are trying to find the source of the firearms and the firearms that are being used to try to stop the violence that are affecting our kids. And that's what we're going to focus on.
We do believe that having tougher common sense gun laws on the books could help. They alone will not solve this problem or this crisis, but the proliferation of guns and not having everything from red flag laws to bans on assault weapons to universal background checks just makes it that much harder for the professionals in law enforcement and that much more dangerous for them to do their jobs. So we'll continue to encourage that, but today's announcement is really about using the tools that our federal partners are bringing to bear to help us go after this.
And I know the U.S. Attorney's Office is here talking about charging people with those gun charges, but what do you do about some of the other judges in the area who will release someone who has a weapon under disability charge for a homicide charge?
We're going to continue to work with the courts, and I spoke to that in my comments, both the suburban mayors and city managers working with the judges to figure out ways that we can make sure, particularly the small number of our most violent offenders are being held accountable and taken off the streets. And then for young people that might be started down the wrong path, that we get effective, well-funded diversion programs so that their activity and choices don't escalate and put others at risk in the community. U.S. Attorney, any additional comments?
I'm not going to comment on any particular judges or their practices. I will say that in federal court, we have some tools that are available that will make, I think, enforcement even more effective. One, as you mentioned, is detention. Having the ability to make an argument to keep people locked up before trial, to keep them off the streets, to keep our community safe. And also the sentences that we can achieve in many of these cases can be stiffer in federal court than in state or local courts. If you are convicted in federal court of a firearms offense, you are going to go to prison, most likely not for days or weeks or months, but for years. And I will also say there are no federal prisons in the state of Ohio. So that means you're going to be shipped somewhere far away from your family and your friends and those that you have surrounded yourself with, and you're going to be there a long time.
Or whoever wants to commit crime in the city?
Speaking for myself, the answer is yes.
Yes. So, from my understanding, there have been a lot of strategic partnerships in different cities across the U.S. Why in Columbus, and why now? Why specifically compared to maybe last year, or, when homicide rates have been increasing for the last few years?
Well, clearly the violence we're seeing this year, we have never seen quite like this before. I mean, we had a record year of homicides in 2017. We brought homicides and violent crime down dramatically in 18 and 19, only to see a spike in 2020 we had never seen. And at this point, we're on pace, to have the highest record of homicides and violent crime in our city's history. So part of this is leveraging any of the resources that are available to us. Clearly, this partnership will benefit the people of Columbus. Having Chief Bryant and Director Pettis continuing to lean in on different strategies and initiatives, and listening to our officers and engaging our officers. I know Chief Bryant has spent a lot of her early time on as chief going around the city, listening directly to officers at roll call and engaging them in different ways, because they have lots of ideas and they're out in our neighborhoods every day, and we're going to be bringing those ideas together with additional strategic partnerships. But clearly, it is all hands on deck, and we're going to continue to try and leverage and utilize any resources available to slow down and to stop gun violence in our city.
With the recent, more common, youth shootings, youth killings, gun violence related.
Well, every life matters. and every life matters in the city. And the different type of violence that I mentioned before that we've seen in both 20 and in 21, both our perpetrators and our victims have become much younger. And so that obviously is, a top priority and focus for ours, not just all the other investments we've talked about focusing on young people, but also these additional resources and tools that will help us hold people accountable and get them off the streets as well. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.